A pair of tough losses for the Orlando Magic in Boston to the Boston Celtics. Why it was more a statement about Boston and what the Magic have to learn from them. It's a crossover episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is December 17th, 2023. It will be December 18th, 2023. My name is Philip Rossman. I am the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we will recap the Orlando Magic's weekend series with the Boston Celtics with Locked On Celtics. John Karalis will talk about what we saw from both teams and their development through these two games, especially Sunday's game, as well as talk about the Eastern Conference picture. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, this great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. This episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match of up to $100. Don't forget, too, that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel today. Now, let's bring in John Karalis to talk about Sunday's game against the Boston Celtics. And I am very happy to be joined by our good friend from Locked On Celtics, John Karalis. John, first, congrats on the wins. Every win matters. We all know this. You shouldn't take them, especially us Magic people. We know you don't take wins for granted. Let's start here. I'm assuming you were there at the TD Garden for both of these games.
Yep.
What stood out to you in these two games over the weekend between the Celtics and the Magic?
I think what stood out the most is the Celtics. I think the professional kind of way the Celtics just handled everything that Orlando threw at them. Both games, the Celtics started off slow, and Orlando came in and did what they did. Paolo had a big first quarter against the Celtics, and it looked like, oh, here we go. Yeah. But they never kind of let it linger. And Joe Mazzulla talked about that after the game here. Some of these lapses are unavoidable, and they came out in the third quarter, a quarter that has been problematic, not so much at home for Boston, but has been problematic. And they started slow again, and they just got through it. And the most important thing that Joe was saying, and that I noticed here, the Celtics aren't letting those lapses linger like they have in the past. They're not full quarter. They're not full half. They're lapses for a few minutes that every NBA team goes through. And this time around, they found a way to snap out of it. Now, in the first game against Orlando, they snapped out of it and took a lead by the end of the first quarter. I think Banchero's first quarter in this game, kept the Celtics at bay a little bit, but Jaylen Brown had monster second and fourth quarters. And that's kind of helped. Somebody in each of these games has stepped up to kind of break the Celtics out of this, and that's what a really good team does. That when I say professional nature, this is what they just don't let that thing linger. Somebody finds a way to get an easy basket, or somebody just says, "Okay, you know what? We're cold. It's not the whole team that's cold." Peyton Pritchard comes in, or Holiday hits a few shots. So I'm really impressed by these two wins by the Celtics. Jason Tatum said it after game. He even said he was impressed by how they played. He said, I don't think we win all 4 of these games, 2 against Cleveland, 2 against you guys last year. And they did. And not only did they do it, they ended up winning big in these 2 games. So I am very, very impressed by how the Celtics kind of responded every time they needed to respond.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big point. And you mentioned kind of the professionalism about the way Boston attacked this game, and I even think Friday's game as well. I think that was the contrast that I saw to Orlando, and like Orlando played a better game Sunday than they did Friday. Jamal Mosley even said it after the game in his post-game remarks is, we really focused on not turning the ball over. They had 21 turnovers. It was their, I think, second highest or worst turnover game of the season as far as turnover rate. On Friday, they only turned it over, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, I think, in the game.
It was 9.
9, yeah.
By the end.
Yeah.
But some couple in garbage time, yeah. But still.
Yeah. Still,
very impressive.
They knocked that part out. Their defense was a step slow against the speed that Boston had to play with on Friday because of the lack of centers. They only gave up 8 free throw attempts in the game, which I think honestly makes Boston's offensive performance even more impressive because they weren't getting to the line. They weren't kind of getting that steady diet. But so Orlando kind of said, or Mosley said after the game, like we made the improvements we wanted to make. But to your point about the professionalism, Boston, when they went through a little cold snap, they ratcheted up the defense. They were really locked in defensively in both games. And Orlando is just not a strong offensive team yet. They're creeping up on the top half of the league, which is a victory for us, but not good enough against a really good defensive team in Boston. Boston was putting a lot of ball pressure, and I'll probably talk on my show tomorrow about some of the lineup issues the Magic had, because as good as Anthony Black played, Derek White was literally going from the opposite corner to double Paolo because they were not concerned with Anthony Black at all in this game. And that's not a knock. I mean, that is a knock on Anthony Black, but also Anthony Black's really good. I
was going to say, don't. It's absolutely a knock on Anthony.
It is a knock on him. But there's still a lot of things to like about Anthony Black. I liked him. I thought he had a good. The Magic got to find a way to keep him in the game, and that's the hard part when you're trying to win now instead of develop players. But that's for tomorrow's episode. What I really found though is the Magic didn't have those answers. You go back to the second quarter. They shoot, what was it, 8 ridiculously bad amount. Let me pull my box score up here. They shot 6 for 22 in the second quarter. And, that's the moment when Boston, when Boston had, whatever slumps they had, really hardened their defense. They're able to get out and run. I thought Orlando, despite shooting so poorly, did a good job defensively and did a good job kind of keeping themselves in the game and trying to keep contact. But, where Boston, when they struggled to shoot, they still found ways to generate offense. When Orlando was struggling to shoot, they were missing shots that they have to make. They were settling for threes. They were, missing shots around the rim. They weren't able to get to the foul line. You could see that frustration just growing on them. And that's when I think they really lost the plot. It wasn't that they weren't making shots. It was the reaction to not making shots. And that was something that happened in Friday's game. And that was something that I think really affected them in Sunday and took them from, being in the game, maybe trailing a little bit because they were going through a slump. That happens in an NBA game, to being down 12, 13, 14, 15 points. And now you're really having to climb uphill against a very good Celtics defense on the road. And that's just not something this Magic team is equipped to do very well.
So I can tell you, this is sounding very familiar for Celtics fans. This is the difference between good young team, the Orlando Magic, and good team, the Boston Celtics. Yes. Where when the Boston Celtics were the good young team, and I think that qualified for them over the past few years, this is what happened. And I think that's actually a great point by you, because this is the difference between these two teams. Last year, the year before, their missing shots affected their defense. And it's been the biggest knock on the Celtics. Now, missing shots first quarter in this game, first quarter in the last game against Orlando. It did not affect their defense. It did not affect their mentality, and it didn't affect their kind of sticking to the plan. And when you've got young players that are not experienced enough to understand fully that those misses don't matter. Like, you miss, it doesn't matter. Get back on defense. What matters is the miss, the hanging your head. Oops, I just got
looking
beat
at the
by a
ref.
big kick ahead. Right. The Celtics did a phenomenal job in these two games with kick aheads, big long passes along the sidelines. All of a sudden you're jogging back and you go very quickly from 5 guys between the ball and the basket to 1 guy between the ball and the basket. And you're like, oh crap. Oh, where was it? Then you get cross matched. Then you get scrambled.
And especially when you're a good defensive team like the Magic. And I thought, like, especially Friday, Boston was obviously playing without a center. So I think they played a little bit differently than they normally play.
Yeah, they played fast.
But Boston was trying to beat the Magic down the court before they could get that defense set, because they knew, Goga Bitadze is what Goga Bitadze is, but trying to score on Goga Bitadze when your center is Lamar Stevens. I don't know what the correct pronunciation is there. I've heard both. Trying to score on him.
Stevens.
I don't know. When Lamar Stevens, O'Shea Brissett are your 2 centers, it's harder to score on Goga Bitadze than if it's Kristaps Porzingis and you're trying to trap, get him stuck in pick and rolls and pick and pops. And so the Celtics, I thought, did a very good job trying to kind of deal with the, Magic are a young team. They don't have they have a good attention span most of the time, but they didn't in this weekend. And I think that was a big part of this series. Not to cut you off there. I want to get back to that point about the vets and the upstarts. I know that's something that a lot of Magic fans and some Celtic personalities have been going back and forth with. But I think it was one of the big themes of this series and one of the big takeaways that I think a lot of us had. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. I don't know if you play PrizePicks, John, but
I have.
You have. I did a PrizePicks this weekend. I won my PrizePicks. I came 2 points, I think 2 Nikola Jokic points short of winning the whole kit and caboodle. But the thing I love about PrizePicks is I usually do groups of 4. I put like a group of 4 together. If you get 3 of those 4 correct, you get 1.5 times your money. You get your money back plus more. And that's what I love about PrizePicks is you really do have the chance to win. And they offer so many great options for you to have a lot of fun watching the weekend games, whether it's the NFL, whether it's the NBA, whether it's doing both combined. I actually did one of their combined league pick plays of I think I did Nikola Jokic points and Zach Edey points with college basketball. And then the other one I did was Jamar Chase receptions with Damian Lillard 3-pointers. So I was able to hit that.
It's fun to cross over like that.
It is fun to cross over like that, just like it's fun to cross over on the pod like this. And PrizePicks really does make it easy. All you have to do is pick 4 to 6 players and project whether they'll have more or less than their projected numbers. They also offer the reboot option, or if a player leaves in the first half and does not return, that pick gets thrown off the board. You get it rebooted. PrizePicks is the easy way to play fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Okay, John, I want to get into this topic because I think this is, like, we've hinted at it here. Like we kind of know what this matchup was, and you don't want to overblow a December matchup. You probably know this better than we do because it's been forever since the Magic have played games that felt meaningful beyond the date that they're being played. But this really did feel like the young upstarts trying to prove themselves against the veteran championship level team. It was something I think, Paolo, I think even said it after Sunday's game, is like that Celtics team, they've been to the finals before. They're competing in the Eastern Conference Finals every year. They're competing for championship every year. That's where we want to be. And certainly I think we can all see with our own eyes from these 2 games how the Celtics look like a championship team, and the Magic, clearly have, I think, the pieces, but they're not quite there yet. When you, I mean, I think clearly you kind of saw it that way too. What other ways maybe do you see, the Magic maybe being on that path, but not quite there?
Yeah, look, the number one thing I'm going to say about the difference between, again, good young team versus good team is figuring out who's going to sacrifice what. This is the number one thing that every great team has to figure out. The Golden State Warriors, who's going to sacrifice what? Who's going to sacrifice their touches? Who's going to be the guy that's the role player? And you get like an Andre Iguodala in there. You get a Jermaine, you get an Andrew Wiggins in there, and they fill a role. And on this team for the Celtics, I think one of the biggest issues has been Jaylen Brown just kind of going to do Jaylen Brown, right? He's going to be who he is, and that's for better or for worse. And he's a second-team All-NBA guy, but turnovers down the stretch and blah, 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 blah. Well, I think what we're seeing lately overall from the Celtics, from Jaylen Brown, and we saw it in these two games, is his ability to do a lot of other things. My favorite play in this game, weirdly, was this a simple pick and roll where he got it over to Sam Hauser and got a little floating layup. But the reason why I loved it so much is that Jaylen invites the double team, and he's never invited the double team, and drawn it out to half court and gotten it to a teammate so the teammate has plenty of room to make his move. Jaylen has always been looking to score. He, at 27 years old, as a second-team All-NBA guy, richest contract ever signed, all of that stuff. If anybody has a longest tenured Celtic, if anybody has a reason to not sacrifice, that's the guy. In this season, and I've been very critical of Jaylen on this podcast, and realize that he's had to make the toughest transition of anybody because of all the stuff that I said, and to go from being a pure scorer to playmaker and kind of finding everybody out and figuring everybody out. Who on the Orlando Magic is going to be that guy? Who's going to be the guy that's, okay, Banchero's your number one, Wagner's your number two. Who's going to be when you get a number three? Are you going to get a number three that's better than one of those two guys and they have to shift? Somewhere along the way, somebody on that team is going to be put in a situation where you on a podcast are going to say, if only this guy can adjust his game a little bit. And if he does, whoever that is, whether he's on the team right now or not, that's going to be where your team makes that shift. The Celtics last year at this point were 20-5. They were 21-5 when they went out west to go play the Golden State Warriors, a game they lost, and it kind of derailed them for a long time. Now they're 20-5, and they're going out to Golden State again. And this is such a different team, even though their record is the same, because Jaylen Brown has figured it out. He's the one that's taking that, hey, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm not going to take 20-plus shots a game. He's taking 18 per game. I'm going to pass the ball more. I'm not going to look for my shot as much. That's the difference between a team that I look at right now and say, wow, more than any other Celtics team I've seen in this current iteration with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, this is the team I'm like, that's a championship squad. That team, if I'm going to open up my FanDuel app and put money on a team to win a championship, I'm putting it on the Celtics because of the way they're playing right now. In Orlando, I have tons of respect for the Orlando Magic. That's a good young team. At some point, you're going to get better. Who's going to sacrifice? That's going to be the question.
Yeah, and I think I like thinking and asking these questions too, because it's coming. It may not be the right time to ask these questions, but it's coming down the line. And I think a lot of Magic fans kind of sense this. I would say like this year, as part of this season's success, one of the big sacrifices that's been made is Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony came to this group, was drafted, thrown into the starting lineup because of the Markelle Fultz injury as a rookie, started for 2 years. Fultz comes back, and then all of a sudden he's having to go back to the bench and have to be the sixth man. And, Cole Anthony's been very, very clear throughout his entire career. I believe I'm a starter. I believe that I can be a starter. I've proven I can score 16 points per game in this league, granted for a tanking team, but he believes he is that caliber player. And obviously he didn't have a great weekend this weekend for the Magic. And that was one of the big reasons why they lost, because bench scoring has been such a huge impactor for the Magic this year. I think at least entering the weekend, probably not leaving the weekend, but entering the weekend, they had the highest scoring bench in the league. But Cole's had, Cole, I think, said on the Low Post a couple weeks ago, it took me to about mid-season last year to really accept and embrace being a sixth man and realize I can still be a dominant scorer coming off the bench and still accomplish a lot of the individual things that I want to accomplish while playing this role. I think it's probably early to ask who's going to have to sacrifice on this team, though, because to some extent, we don't know how good a Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner can be.
Right.
Right. And I think, I know, Paolo and Jason Tatum worked out a little bit, at least this summer. I look at Paolo and I think he's going through a lot of the same things that a Jason Tatum went through early in his career, where he's having to learn what a good shot is, learning when to take his shot, when to help others, when to get others involved. Yep. And that's obviously, I think, hearing what you're saying about Jaylen Brown, especially, still a process that's evolving even as they get older, is understanding that. And, right now, I think we all looked at the 11 turnovers between Banchero and Franz Wagner in Friday's game. And it was just like, well, those are your two most important decision makers, regardless of who's in the game. Sometimes you just got to go through mistakes and just learn from them. And so I think with the Magic, we're talking about the playoffs here. This is a playoff team. This is a team that is going to be playing game 83, 84, 85, 86 at least. We're getting 4 games in April, and in late April, with this group. I think we're all fairly confident about that. We don't know what their ceiling is quite yet. And so a lot of it right now is just about gaining experience. And I think the way they've started this season, not that it's fool's gold, not that it's a bad thing. It's never bad to have a good record and to bank up wins the way this team has banked up wins. But I think we all understand the Magic are not at the same level or playing the same even game that the Celtics are playing. The Celtics, they got one goal. That's the Larry O'Brien trophy. As nice as the NBA Cup would have been, their goal is to win the Larry O'Brien trophy. That's all that matters. Success for the Magic this season is, hey, let's get to a playoff series and let's see what we really have and what we really need. They need, honestly, I've told a lot of people this. I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world to get into a series with a team like the Celtics and get their butts kicked for 4 or 5 games.
Sure.
Just to learn what you actually need. What do you have internally on the roster that you feel can continue to get better, and maybe what's missing? You go back to the kind of idea of sacrifice. I think a lot of Magic fans are sensing that Markelle Fultz may not be the right point guard for this group. They desperately need shooting. We talked a little bit about Anthony Black. I think a lot of Magic fans are really excited about Anthony Black and what he can be, but he is such a non-factor offensively. And some of that is because Black is not a great shooter yet. Some of that is because the Magic choose to make him a non-factor offensively too, by kind of sticking him in the corner and keeping him out of the way. Markelle Fultz doesn't improve a lot of that. You kind of need that shooting to keep teams from swarming your guys. And you're going to learn in a playoff series very, very quickly how different it is and how much more precise you have to be. And again, I think these little baseball series are really nice because it gives you a little taste of it. We saw the Magic make adjustments and it still didn't really matter against a really good Celtics team on the road. You're going to, you do the right things, you could still be down 2-0, and you're going to learn very, very quickly how precious every moment of a game can be. And I think that's going to be one of the bigger lessons that a young team like the Magic has to learn. And this is still, very much a season of lessons for Orlando. I want to get your thoughts a little bit more on kind of how the East is shaping out now that we're past the quarter mark of the season, and where maybe the Magic fit in with that. I want to get to that coming up here in just a moment.
Hey, look, I talked about the FanDuel app earlier, and I think it's kind of fun. I was looking, I'm actually surprised that the Celtics were able to cover the 2 spreads that they were able to cover. But, you know,
Especially
look,
Friday.
if people hit, especially Friday. Yeah. But look, man, this is, if you want to get in on the action, if people want to get in on the action there, very easy to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon. What do you get when you're there? If you're a new customer, you place a $5 money line bet. If you had placed that $5 bet on the Celtics to win one of these games, you would have not only won your bet, you'd get $150 in bonus bets. So any winning $5 money line bet gets you $150 in bonus bets. So if you're thinking about joining FanDuel, this is a great time to do it. Plus, all kinds of things: spreads, player props, over-unders, in-game, same-game parlays, where you can go on. You could mix and match between points, somebody's rebound, somebody's assist, stack them up. You can get a nice little payout there. FanDuel.com/lockedon is where you go. You can play it for any sport. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. I just ask everybody, use the tools that FanDuel has there for you to set up your limits and do all of that stuff. And please gamble responsibly.
So, obviously, we could, these are facts. The Magic and the Celtics entered this game as two of the top three teams in the Eastern Conference. Orlando, with the 2 losses, has slipped below Philadelphia. And I think we, I forget what the stat is. I think it's something like 7 of the 8 playoff teams are usually in place by about Christmas or around New Year's Day. So I forget what the stat is. Like there is surprisingly little movement in and out of the playoff picture, at least when you get fairly early in the NBA season. So we're getting to a point where the standings kind of are what they are. Obviously there's movement up and down within those top 8 or so, but we're getting to a point where, okay, it's not just an early season sprint or a strong start. Something here is permanent. So, I think the expected top 3 are there now. Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia are your top 3 in the East. It's a little bit of a mess below them, but I want to get your thoughts first. I'll give you the courtesy of getting your thoughts first on the top of the East. Where do you see Boston do you see Boston as heads and tails above those teams, or where do you see Boston among the title contenders in the East right now?
I feel like the Celtics are starting to separate themselves a little bit. 23 of Boston's 25 games have come against Eastern Conference teams. So they've kind of like set the table a little bit. They've kind of won a lot of the tiebreakers. This is, this clinched the series against Orlando. So that's, not that I don't think Orlando's going to be the tie. Yeah. So you never know. You never know. You never know. But these are important things for teams to stack. Conference records matter and all of that stuff. So I still think like Milwaukee and Philly are very much in the figure themselves out mode a little bit more than maybe Boston is. Philly with their, with Maxey kind of taking over and Harden going, it's obviously worked out well. Damian Lillard coming in and trying to figure things out with Giannis. It's worked out well. I mean, they're teams that are winning better than 70% of their games. So that constitutes working well. And the point differential is great. I mean, Philly's got the best point differential in the league. So those teams are there. I think Boston, just obviously I'm very close, and I'm seeing like the little minute stylistic differences that maybe I don't see in some of these other teams. But if Boston can just keep playing like this, then I think they are going to separate themselves as the best team, at least in the East. I think, not to talk, bring the West into it, but I think there are teams in the West. I think like Denver's is kind of like, they're not as
there's a lot of teams. Yeah, there's a lot of teams pacing themselves. Like,
so
it feels like Boston. Like Boston's probably going to hit like a little bit of a rough patch where, and rough patch meaning like 2 games over 500 instead of winning all 7 games in a 7-game stretch.
Sure.
But that happens in a season. They're resting Al Horford because they know on back-to-backs because they know a game in December against the Magic isn't as important as him being ready to go for games in March and April. Like these are the teams that manage a season more than play a season. And obviously Boston, I think, is getting a ton of wins. What I really like about Boston from watching them, both, really all 3 games they played the Magic, is it just feels like they can beat you any style you want to play. Like what I was really impressed with the Celtics throughout this weekend, especially, is, if the Magic blocked off one thing, and look, Orlando's I don't think Orlando had a great defensive weekend, but that's still like good defense. And, when they're engaged and they're locked in, they're really tough to crack. It felt like if Orlando closed one door, Boston just like went around the back of the house and was like, oh, this door's here open. Let me just climb in through here, or this window's open. Let me climb in through there. And, what I was really impressed with Boston is it just felt like they can beat you in a number of different styles. And I know that's something I think about a lot, especially with these 2 games. It felt like Orlando had just like kind of one way that they're going to beat you. Like they got to get downhill in the paint. They got to get to the foul line. They got to use that because they're not going to hit enough threes to beat you. Boston on Friday hit a ton of threes. They played fast. In this game, they hit him with the pick and roll with Porzingis popping out 3-point line or rolling to the basket. They hit him with, Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown running ISOs. It just felt like there was just a bunch of different ways the Celtics can beat you. And not that Philadelphia and Milwaukee don't have that, but it just feels like Boston's just more on the same page. And there's just a different vibe about them where things clicked much more instantly than maybe it has for the other contenders. Obviously, we still got 4 months to go before everyone's fighting to grow that. But it just feels like Boston is just more locked in and on the same page at this point.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's my assessment there. That Boston is, I think, just the continuity, the familiarity. Your 2 best players have been here the longest, and that's what you can't say that necessarily about everybody, and definitely not in Milwaukee. So those 3 teams are what they are, and I think that's going to be how it shakes out. I think there's something to that stat, because I think the only way, when you look at the rest of the standings, Orlando, Miami, New York as 4, 5, 6, I can see some variation of those 3 teams in that 6, because then after that, the only thing I would say is, can Cleveland figure out a way to get, because I was high on Cleveland coming into the season. Now, they don't have Evan Mobley for a while. They don't have Darius Garland for a while. Maybe they're just going to have to, maybe this is just going to be where they are. But I don't expect Indiana. They're not good enough defensively. I don't expect Brooklyn. I don't expect Toronto to make any sort of meaningful run.
Atlanta
I never
feels
believed,
like a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. I never believed in the Atlanta Hawks. Like I'm certified Atlanta Hawks hater. So this is exactly where I thought they'd be. And then it's Chicago, Charlotte, Washington, Detroit. So yeah, maybe the only change I can see is Atlanta jumping into the play-in and like maybe Toronto falling out, but they both have the same record. So of course I can see that.
I mean, honestly, that might just depend on what they decide to do at the deadline. And I think the deadline is going to be fascinating this year, because there feels like there's a lot of teams that could easily pull the plug. Like I think we're all expecting Chicago to maybe pull the plug. Toronto could pull the plug. I think, Brooklyn is still in a position to be aggressive. Cleveland knows that there's a kind of a ticking time bomb with Donovan Mitchell. And, depending on where their guys are at or where they're at in the standings, maybe they decide, hey, let's just cash in now and steal a bunch of stuff from somebody and stay in. I don't think that's out of the possibility. Charlotte's got a Gordon Hayward to dangle. I know Magic fans want to go after like a Malcolm Brogdon with Portland to kind of help build up that point guard spot and kind of help. Yeah. I mean, like big point guard who can shoot the ball a little bit. That sounds like what the Magic need, but you just don't know. It does feel like that door, Orlando did a good job building itself up in the first quarter of the season. I think banking those wins, because they're starting probably their toughest stretch of the schedule with this weekend in Boston. They'd only play, I think they only play 2 teams with a sub 500 record from now until the midpoint of the season in mid-January. They play the Wizards on December 26th and the Warriors to open, or I think it's to open the West Coast trip in late December, early January. So they've got a lot of challenges ahead. They're playing Miami on Wednesday. They're playing Milwaukee on Thursday in an impossible back-to-back. They got Indiana over the weekend as well. And I know Indiana's going to want to get the Magic back for what they did to them a couple weeks ago. We're going to know where the Magic are going to sit, I think, by, let's say, by Martin Luther King Day, when the Magic play the Knicks on MLK Day. We're going to know exactly where they sit. And it's probably going to be in that, I think they're going to be able to stay in that 4, 5, 6 group and kind of be in the hunt for home court advantage. And, I don't know how you feel watching this team. Obviously you didn't get to see them maybe at their best this weekend, but it does feel like this is a team that could be kind of like the surprise team that steals home court advantage in a playoff series and sees what happens.
I think I believe in the Magic. I believed in that. I believed in them last year. Yeah. I thought that they were going to be tough last year, and they gave the Celtics fits last year. Obviously, they won 4 straight against the Celtics. And, hey, the Celtics certainly were aware of that fact. And I think that played into this weekend for sure. But they're 4-0 against the Celtics for a reason. And they're big, tough, strong team that, okay, young and all of that stuff. But I believe in Banchero, and I believe in Franz Wagner, and I believe in the coaching. And I think that just the whole thing works. They obviously are prone to the things that we've talked about here, but I also think that they're a damn good basketball team, and their size causes problems. I do think that they can compete, and again, looking at the East, I don't know about 4, but I'm not a big believer in the Miami Heat anymore. But hey,
do that at your own risk.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, they're the Heat. Give them the respect that they've earned. So if Miami takes it, fine. New York is such an interesting team. If it ended up exactly like we see it in the standings today, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't want to see Orlando in the first round of the playoffs or the second round of the playoffs. So that would be something that hopefully the Celtics can avoid. But even though the Celtics clearly, beat them this weekend, they're a big, tough team. And I just, I'd like a little bit of an easier road than that. I believe in the Magic. I think they're a playoff team. Depending on the matchup, maybe you even win a series. But this is going to be, if nothing else, this is a good season. I think this is going to be a good season for Orlando. And this is going to be a good learning season for the Magic. And you're going to learn how good you are. You're also going to learn how far you need to go. And by the end, I think it's any kind of lesson you can teach a guy like Banchero in his second season, and Wagner, who's still yet, like, any lessons you could teach them about how far they need to go to get to where the Celtics are is important at this stage of their development, because the best is very obviously in front of them. I think this is going to be a very beneficial run for them.
Yeah, I think that is perfectly said. And I think that's what I wrote coming out of Sunday's game is the Magic have come a long way. It's already been a very good season. It's certainly setting up to be a great season for them. The Boston Celtics showed them this weekend how far they still have to go, because the Celtics played like a championship team. They're not maybe playing championship, conference finals, playoff levels of intensity quite yet, but they brought it this weekend. They put the young guys in their place and kind of showed them like, hey, you're not on our level yet. And very clearly the Celtics are a team that is thinking about the big gold trophy at the end of the season and not very much else. John, I want to thank you for hopping on and joining this crossover episode. Tell my listeners where they can find you if they want to keep following the Celtics this season.
It's on Twitter, John_Karalis. I host the Locked On Celtics podcast, obviously. My writing's at Boston Sports Journal. That's basically everything you need to know. And Magic fans, first off, I love that the Magic and Celtics are our rivalry again. For us, it's a traditional rivalry. For you, for the Celtics, we're the young kids. But I like us being rivals again. But don't inundate John with things. Magic Twitter, please. He's a good guy.
Bring it. Okay, then bring it.
Bring it.
Bring
Bring
it. Bring it.
it. Bring it.
Bring it all. Bring it all. For those looking to hear more from me, you can find my written work at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Follow me on Twitter at OMagicDaily, as well as at @PhilipR_OMB. And of course, listen to the Locked On Magic podcast if you want to keep up with the Orlando Magic. John, I will sign off how I always sign off. See you in the conference finals.
See you there.
I want to thank John Karalis once again for coming on the show. Please be nice to him. John is a friend. He's a good guy. You know, yes, he could take the hate. And I know Magic fans have a lot of hate in their heart for the Celtics, but hey, be easy on him for me, guys. Truly appreciate John for jumping on the show and chatting about our two teams. Hopefully we'll be seeing them in the Eastern Conference Finals very, very, very soon. But that's going to do it for us today. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google, Spotify, Odyssey. Also, we sell a podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device, as well as watch us on YouTube as well. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And, of course, check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/OrlandoMagicHub. Thank you all once again for your support. On our next episode of Locked On Magic, we'll break down some more specific Magic things. We did a kind of global show today. We'll break down some more specific things about the Magic's weekend series with the Celtics, what the takeaways are, and more. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Phil Rossman, right? We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.